if we can reframe that and if we can make sense of that and what's happening in our body, we turn the light on so it's less scary, because those symptoms that come with anxiety are scary unless we understand where they're coming from. And where they're coming from is a really protective, powerful brain which is working hard to keep us safe.
Hello, I'm Dr Jodi Richardson, and you're listening to Well, Hello Anxiety, a podcast where we end the struggle with anxiety and build our toolkit of practical skills to thrive. Hello and welcome back to another episode of the podcast. It's exciting for me today because I'm getting to sit down and have a really good chat with Karen Young, who founded Hey Sigmund. She's an author, she's a speaker, she is a consultant. She works with schools and with organisations and with parents. She's a psychologist, and she is just such an amazing, amazing woman in the area of anxiety education and neurodevelopment. And I'm a huge fan, and I really just love Karen's work, and it's a real joy to introduce her and have a good chat about anxiety today. So welcome, Karen.
Hi, Jodi. Thank you so much for having me. It's so nice that we get to chat like this, because I have been a big fan of your work around anxiety for such a long time, and you as a human. So it's so nice to be able to do this, and I'm really thrilled to be here with you. So thank you for having me.
Oh, Karen, it's just honestly, and I don't think an hour is going to be enough for us, but we'll give it a red hot go, won't we? So you're
Shot.
in Queensland, aren't you?
Yeah,
How are you and your family? Before we sort of digress, how are you
yeah,
going yourself and your
yeah.
family and your friends?
Do you know, we're in Queensland and I feel like we're so lucky here, and we are all doing really well, aside from the curveballs that life generally throws people at every time. In terms of where we are with COVID and lockdowns, we've been really lucky. So we aren't feeling the restraint of that as much as I expect some people might be. So we're still able to connect and go outside. So we're doing well. I feel like we're all able to still do the things that we do, that we need to do, that keep us, calm and connected. So I feel like we're really lucky here.
Oh, I'm
Mm.
so thrilled for you, and I look at friends who I have in different states in Australia, and I have a friend who's been to Hamilton Island recently, and I must admit,
Oh,
I felt this little bit of envy welling up with this
yeah,
idea that, oh goodness, but also this sense of real hope that there's
yeah.
so much to look forward to, isn't there? There's so
There
much to come for all of us in the more sort of southern states.
There really is. And I feel like, there are still the unknowns that unsettle everybody, because we're going to open up and things are going to change, and we have to be ready for that. But we need to, because I feel like living separately as we are, it's, understandably, it's getting in the way for a lot of people, and people aren't able to see their loved people as easily as they used to. But there is hope, and good things are coming, I feel like, for all of us, which is important.
Mm. They
Mm.
are. And one of the challenges, I think, for a lot of people and for a lot of families is the idea of getting back out into the
Yeah.
world and, re-entering society. It's going to be easier for some than others. And what would you say, to really draw on your expertise in this area of anxiety, what would you say to people, or, and they could share obviously what they're learning from us today with their children as well, to help sort of ease that transition or help people sort of develop more acceptance for it as well?
Yeah. I think what we have to do is, uh, at the moment, it can, with when we think about going out there, it can feel like a big nebulous glob of stuff that we're facing, and that can be really scary, because uncertainty is scary, and it's kind of like we're looking at it through a foggy lens, and we don't really know what we're looking at, and we're trying to take all of it in. So I think what we have to do first of all is really break it down and say, okay, so exactly what feels big for you right now? What bit feels bigger? And really look at that, because we can handle little bits at a time. When it feels bigger than us is when we're trying to think about handling all of it at once. So, in relation to kids, um, I think the biggest thing for them is letting them know that we really believe we're going to be okay. We might not know exactly what that's going to look like, but they are looking to us for signs of safety. And do you think we'll be okay? And what do you think this is going to look like? And it's okay for us to say, I'm a little bit anxious about it as well, but we need to deliver that with strength. And I know that we're going to be okay. This has been a long time coming. The reason we have been separated from each other for such a long time is to wait till the right time, and this is the right time, and I believe that, I trust that, and I trust we'll be okay. Even if there's a big part of you that isn't certain about that, tap into that part of you that knows enough, that has enough faith that whatever happens, you'll be okay, because that's what our kids are looking for.
And they can so easily pick up on our signs. I know that, I've here in Victoria been in lockdown for a long time, and there have been, I've gone over that tipping point, and I'll probably share more about that in other episodes. But just, I know that I've had so much overwhelm. It's
Yeah.
not so much been anxiety. It's just it's been stress and having so many competing demands on your time. And I've got to that point where I've tipped over that tipping point on 2 occasions now, and I've really recognized that and I've had good conversations with the kids afterwards, that, and good, goodness me, that the beautiful mirroring of all the things I've said to them came right back at me. This is such a hard time, mum,
Yeah.
and what do you need? And all the beautiful things that I've
Yeah.
been teaching them all their lives, which was just a real, shining light in the midst of a difficult time. But I was really aware in those moments that I could not be that sort of strong alpha, not alpha presence, but that strong presence that kids do look for. And what about the parents and the people that are listening that are really struggling with their own, what can we do to sort of help
Mhm.
ourselves be that real guiding light, and have that strength
Yeah.
for our families and our friends as well, probably?
First of all, we have to stop fighting it. And I think
Mm.
because when we start fighting, we start judging ourselves, other people, we start resenting that we're even here. So the first thing to do is really receive it with open hands and an open heart and say, this is how it is. And of course, it's going to be this way, because what we know is the more we try and fight it or deny it, the bigger it gets. So feelings, we've got to let that feeling of overwhelm or anxiety or whatever it is, the dread, whatever it is, the uncertainty, we have to let it move through us. We can't do that by squashing it down, because if we squash it down, it's just going to grow. So the first thing we have to do um, is look at this and own it with a compassionate mind and say it's okay to feel like this. I do feel overwhelmed. Of course, I'm going to feel overwhelmed because this is a new situation, and I don't know what it's going to look like on the other side. And that's okay. It feels wobbly right now, and that's okay. So I think that's the first thing we need to do. Turn and face that it is uncertain, that we don't know what's going to happen. But wherever you can, tap into that part that can really anchor you with the sense that you will get through this little bit by little bit by little bit. And you only have to get through a little bit at a time. So you don't have to knuckle the whole thing all at once. And it's okay if it all gets too much, and you just feel like you need to pull back for a while, or vent, or cry in the shower, or whatever you need to do. That's okay, because we need that release. And that's all important, because that's that emotion, energy and motion moving through us. So we need to give it a way out. And that's okay. But it is about a compassionate mind, and handling it with compassionate hands, as we would if we were watching someone we loved go through what we're going through. And we can tend to be so much kinder to other people in our lives than ourselves. And it's hard. It's really hard, especially if you feel like you have to be strong for family or strong for everybody else. There's nothing weak in turning and and looking at the overwhelm and going, "Yep, you're here. I'm here, and it's big right now." Um, it's letting it do what it needs to do, which is move through.
Mm. It's it's such a difficult thing to do though, isn't it? We naturally want to run, we naturally, and when I was thinking about naming the podcast, and I've called it, well, Hello Anxiety, and I did that because it's obviously, you know the counterintuitive approach to what we naturally do is we want to turn our back, we want to say goodbye. And one of the episodes, I actually episode 2, which at the time of recording this, that will come out tomorrow, episode 2, and I bumped into a friend down at the supermarket, and I got to talking about the podcast, and she said, "Goodbye anxiety." She said, "That's really what I want to say." But it's really when we can stop and we can have
Mm.
a look at what's happening, that we're so much more empowered, aren't we, to
Yeah.
be able to do something about it.
We also have to remember anxiety is there for a reason. It's there to protect us, it's there to take care of us. We are going through something that we haven't been through before. So, unfamiliarity or unpredictability drives big anxiety. We've got all of it. We've got the whole shebang right now. So our
Hmm.
anxiety is there going, "Hey, I'm here to look after you because I don't know what this is going to look like. And I want to get you ready in case you need to fight this or in case you need to run from this and turn away from it. I'm here to look after you." It feels terrible. Of course it does. But we have to remember that it's there to look after us. And if we can let it in and go and recognize that we can actually move with that. We don't need to fight it and push it away because it's not a sign of breakage. And anxiety for sure will tell a deficiency story. It will come and it will feel like we're not ready or we're not up to the challenge. But that's not what it is at all. So if we can have that reframe and say, well, it's here to look after me. The problem is right now it's not looking after me the way I need to be because I need to be able to go out there and feel okay. Um, and and that's where the compassionate heart and hands come into it, is recognizing that and just letting it be as much as it
Mm.
can and moving with. And it doesn't mean it'll feel good. It doesn't mean that it will get rid of it at all, but hopefully it will soften it enough so that we can recognize that we can feel that anxiety and also tap into the strength that comes with that. Because it always comes with everything we need to move through it.
It really does. And you've just as you're explaining that, images from your beautiful book, which I'll just sing the praises of till the end of the earth, is just Hey, Hey Warrior, it's called. And it's just the illustrations, gosh, don't get me started on those. They're just gorgeous. But
Yeah.
to get to the content, and I mean, the content and the illustrations just go beautifully hand in hand. And it's a book, and it's a book for written for kids, but it's a beautiful book for anybody who wants to get a really good understanding of what's happening in an anxious brain, and that there's this protective part of our brain that wants to keep us safe. And it's the story of a little boy who learns about this part of his brain, and how he can sort of say, you know what, thank you, but I'm all right, thanks so much,
Mm.
but I'm okay, I've got this. And I'd really love you to share a bit more with our listeners today about what happens in an anxious brain. What happens when the amygdala is activated,
Yeah.
and can we lead into to the advice that you share so beautifully and articulately, not only in the book but in all your work, to help people to sort of settle that brain's alarm system down.
Yeah. So the way to think about anxiety is it's our early warning system and it's there to keep us safe. So if we didn't have anxiety, we'd be dead. So it's got a really important job to do. There wouldn't be anything to steer us away from tricky situations or tricky people. Now the thing about anxiety is it comes from the amygdala, which is very primitive. It's primal, so it's been there for a long, long time, and it will just react to all sorts of things. We don't always know what it's reacting to. And when the amygdala reacts whenever there is whenever it thinks that we might need protection from something, or whenever it thinks there's something that could hurt us. And anything that comes with unfamiliarity, unpredictability, any threat of humiliation or judgment or failure, anything like that, as well as the physical threats, will count as threat to an anxious brain. Now, whenever the amygdala fires up, it surges our body with a really powerful neurochemical cocktail that is there to get our body ready to move, to get to safety through movement, through fight or flight. So it's actually, it's a magnificent response from a really powerful, strong, protective brain. The problem is with things, if we're talking about going back out into the world, or being away from our important people, there's nothing to fight or flee there. So this response, which is primitive and instinctive and will just fire up, it doesn't really consider whether we need fight or flight. It will land the same way, whether it's threat from a physical threat from someone tracing us or an intruder, as it will to those psychological threats, which is fear of being separated or being humiliated, all of those things that can unsettle all of us. It will feel the same in our body. Now, if we were being chased by someone or something, that response would make sense, and it would feel like it would be grateful for it, because it's getting us stronger and faster and giving us everything we need. It doesn't feel good when we're, say, sitting at the dinner table or sitting or driving the car on the way to somewhere we need to be, and it fires up. It's still there for the same thing, to get our bodies into a state where they're more able to protect us. But when that fuel builds up, that's when it feels really awful. But if we can reframe that, and if we can make sense of that and what's happening in our body, um, it's we turn the light on, so it makes it's less scary, because those symptoms that come with anxiety are scary unless we
Mm.
understand where they're coming from. And where they're coming from is a really protective, powerful brain which is working hard to keep us safe. It's not coming from breakage, it's not coming from a broken brain, and it's certainly not coming from a deficiency. It's actually what makes us human. And the thing about anxiety and that anxious response, it's actually one of the most human of the human emotions. So the thing which makes us feel isolated from people and like we're different to people is actually the thing that unites us, because we all have the capacity for it. It's like anger, sadness, jealousy. They're all in us and they all have a job to do. But when they happen at the wrong time, they can feel confusing. Um, but but they're still there to serve us. And if we can reframe it as that, as something that's here to serve us, even though it feels terrible, um, it it can soften it enough so we can do what we need to do.
Mm.
Mm.
I love the way you shed light on this part of our brain that like you say, it's there, it's protective, we need it, and it helps, when we can think of it in a different way. And I remember the first time I heard you speak was down here in
Yeah.
Victoria, and I was on a pathway, my own sort of personal and evolving professional pathway, I suppose you could say, many, many years ago. And, when I heard you speak, it was the first time, because I think I'd grown up really, once I'd understood that I had anxiety, and untreated anxiety developed into depression, and that resolved through lots of help. And then anxiety's sort of been the ongoing challenge, which I manage it so well now. It's not really something that gets in the way at all. Not even this podcast, darn it. It's not getting in the way. But that idea of that brokenness was,
Mm.
when I heard you say that, that was so healing for me, because I think we do come from, I shouldn't speak for everybody, but I think a lot of people do think there's something wrong with me.
Yeah.
Is that common amongst the people that, because of course you've worked in private practice for a long time. Of course
Yeah.
you've
Yeah.
been with a lot of people who've experienced this. Is it sort of like a common belief?
It's a very common belief. And Anxiety is there. It's there to look after us, but when we can't make sense of it, it feels like we feel like we're not meant to feel. We're not meant to feel like this. We're meant to feel strong and brave and powerful and be able to do this. And sometimes the only evidence we've got is what everybody else is doing. So we look at what everybody else is doing, and they can do things that sometimes feel like a struggle for us, but we don't see their struggles all the time. And so one of the things we need to recognize is anxiety and strength and courage, they come hand in hand. They always do. Because if there is no need for strength and courage, that's what makes it brave, is that there is a need for strength and courage. It's scary, it's new, it's unfamiliar, it's unpredictable. We might fail, we might be humiliated, and it might end up a miserable mess, and we are at the edge of that. That's what makes it brave. It's also what makes us anxious, because our brain is going to say, hey, I don't know about this. You need to watch it here. You haven't done this before. This is new. What about all those people? This really matters to you. What happens if you mess it all up? How are you going to feel then? Um, so they come hand in hand. But if we focus on the anxiety, which is what we tend to do, we focus on the risk. And that's what
Mm.
anxiety does. Anxiety goes, yeah, but what if you fail? What if you mess it up? What if you don't come back from this? And it's there to pull us back, which, if we're walking past a dark alley, that's anxiety. What if you go down there, and what if there's someone waiting, and what if you get hurt, and what if you don't survive this? That's the thing that actually keeps us safe. But when it speaks up at times when we're facing things that are important to us, and where we're safe enough, we don't want to be held back from those. So that's where we need to recognize that it's there to serve us, not to control us. But ultimately, it's up to us what we do. So they can coexist. They do. They can't. It can't. Strength and courage can't coexist without anxiety, because that's what makes it strong and brave. But it's
Yeah.
where we shift our focus. And what we focus on is what's going to become powerful. It's what's going to become bigger. So for sure, focus, notice the anxiety, but recognize that it's hand in hand with an offer for you to do something big or meaningful or something that matters to you.
Mm. I remember Michael I don't know if you're familiar with the work of Professor Michael Steger in the area of meaning and purpose. Oh, and he's just such a lovely, lovely fellow. There's a beautiful quote that meaning is an anchor we throw into the future that helps to pull us
Yes,
forward.
yes,
And it's such a
I
beautiful
love that.
creates such a beautiful visual, doesn't it?
Yeah,
Because and that's what's so important for us to know, well, why we need a good enough reason to
yeah,
be able to recognize that anxiety and do it anyway, and to be able to say, I'm anxious, but the anxiety is just coming along with me for the ride. Just
mm,
jump in the back seat, please. You're not driving."
exactly. That's
um,
what it is. Yeah. And we have to
yeah,
look at it and say, I don't feel like this because I'm broken. I actually feel like this because this matters to me, because there's something important I need to do. And sometimes important counts as getting out of bed and moving
yeah.
on with the day. So it isn't necessarily big and um and doesn't necessarily come um, with this glistening, shimmering coat. It doesn't come like that. Sometimes it's the everyday things, but on top of everything
Mm,
else, it feels big. But it
mm,
matters and it's important. And anxiety will front up with those as well. So that's what we have to say. You're safe. And this matters to you. Of course, you're going to feel anxious, and that's okay. And one of the things I say is then we have to say, is this a time for me to be safe? Because sometimes it will be. Sometimes it's a time to retreat. And that's something we need to, say to our kids as well. Sometimes pulling back is the bravest thing you can do. But then sometimes it's moving forward to that approach. And the life-giving part is knowing which is which, because they'll feel the same. Threat and
mm.
important, meaningful things will feel the same sometimes.
Yes, it is. It's raising that awareness, isn't it? And it's building those decision making skills in kids as well, because we know that it's that they do need us to help with that. When we are highly anxious, we just can't think straight. And I'd love to talk more about that in a moment. But I love that because it's helping them to go, is this a time, and develop that willingness to be brave. That if I'm going to be brave, well, I know I'm not going to feel a-okay. I'm not going to feel calm and
Mm,
cool and collected. I'm going to feel like this, but I'm going to be brave, and that's the decision I'm making. And like you say, there are times where each are appropriate for different reasons, and there's
mm,
no rules around that. And it depends
mm,
on, the child as well and what challenges,
mm.
they're
Absolutely.
overcoming. And
Yeah.
especially for kids, I had a question from a parent the other night at a presentation, and it was about her child had given up on school.
Mm,
Her child had given up on school with all of the remote learning,
yeah.
a Victorian family. And so, when things have become, that serious in terms of sort of, what we would call avoidance, and that retreat,
Mm.
it's about little steps, isn't it?
Little steps. And what we have to
Mm,
remember is we don't have to do the whole lot, and our kids don't have to do the whole lot. It can be just a tiny, tiny, tiny shuffle. Um, but as long as it's something, because the brain only learns from experience, and we need to
mm,
remind ourselves it's something we need to say, okay, are they safe? Is this something important, or is this something dangerous for them? So, of course, if school is genuinely dangerous, if there's bullying or if there's stuff going on, then we need to act there and do things, either rearrange the environment or put in extra support for them. Um, but then we also have to say, if they are safe, then we say, okay, so this is a time to inch forward a little tiny bit, and that might also look like doing things in the environment to make it feel easier, or to put more support in the environment. But it's how can we just tipple you forward just a teeny bit, and you might do that over and over and over until that feels safe, and then you just keep inching
mm.
forward like that. Describe it like getting into a cold pool. You know when you hop into a cold pool and you put your feet in, it's freezing and you wanna jump out, but then you stay there and then you adjust and then you hop into your knees, and then it's freezing, you wanna hop out, but you adjust, and moving forward is the same thing. But we don't wanna throw them in the deep end. We don't wanna throw ourselves in the deep end. Sometimes we can't avoid that because
Mm,
it's all or nothing. But as much as we can, those little steps, they matter because it's teaching the brain, it's teaching the amygdala, look, this is okay. We can handle this much. And then it'll do that, and then it can handle a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more. But the little steps matter. Mm.
it is. It's a manageable approach, isn't it, for
Mm.
families? And, gosh, there's updeen, different, examples of, when there's that avoidance, because that's the retreat. I prefer
Mm.
that word actually, that retreat to safety, and that's what the brain's designed to do, to keep us safe. And so, like you say, just sort of edging them closer and closer, and it might be a few steps forward and a couple of little shuffles back.
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and along the way, though, I know that you share really practical strategies that are applicable across all ages. So when that, it's brilliant once the anxiety's been recognized. It's like, well,
Mhm.
this is what it is. There's learn about what's happening so that you can see it when it's coming. And then in terms of kind of starting to settle the amygdala, and I know you talk a lot about breathing. Can you explain why that's so powerful
Yeah.
to help settle anxiety symptoms as they're bubbling up?
Yeah. Breathing activates the vagus nerve. When it's a strong, steady breath, it activates the vagus nerve, which is actually a pair of nerves that extends from the brain, goes it extends from the brain down our spine, passes our heart, and lands in our tummy. The vagus nerve, most of the messages that travel the vagus nerve actually go body to brain. So we can influence what's happening in our brain by activating that vagus nerve. There's lots of work happening around it. It's in all areas of mental health, not just anxiety. But strong, steady breathing activates the vagus nerve, sends messages back to the brain, which activates the relaxation response, which is hardwired into us. So we don't even need to believe it'll work. It'll just work. But we do need to activate it. It won't activate. The fight or flight response will activate on its own, but the relaxation response, we have to activate it. And one of the things it does, which is does lots of things, but the really important thing for anxiety is it starts to neutralize that neurochemical surge that the amygdala is using to gear us up into that stronger, faster, more powerful state to be able to get our bodies to safety through movement. So breathing is a really important thing, but uh, it's not going to work if we tell someone who is feeling anxious to just take a strong, steady breath. Sometimes it can make it worse because we have to remember we're dealing with an amygdala that doesn't want strong, steady breathing. It wants short, shallow breathing. Um, because that's how it's going to get us to safety quicker. So, the best thing is to practice that strong, steady breathing and build up that familiar neural pathway, and then it will be more accessible for the brain during anxiety because the amygdala will fight it. The amygdala will fight the relaxation response because it's saying, no, I don't want to relax. I've got to keep you safe. Don't you see what's happening? And it'll push back that way.
Oh, thank you for explaining that. It's so important, isn't it? The idea of that practice and developing that neural pathway so that it's easier to access. I chatted to Dr. Chris McCurry, who wrote "Parenting Your Anxious Child with Mindfulness and Acceptance," and oh gosh, Chris is just so lovely. And he talked about, this crevice, this sort of almost like a canyon that, in terms of sort of neural pathways when we're
Mm,
in the very strong habits of anxious behavior. And so, we need to sort of create those new pathways and that's practice. And like you say, you can more easily draw on it. And, when I want to also get you to talk a little bit about, please, in terms of the building the connections and through mindfulness, not so much breathing, or not that I'm aware of, but through activating the prefrontal cortex. And if you could start by sharing with our listeners today, with the prefrontal cortex, what happens when the amygdala kind of,
mm,
fires up, and
yeah.
why some of the other strategies we use, like mindfulness, make such a difference over the long term in sort of building our emotional regulation.
Mm. So during any anxiety, the thinking brain, the prefrontal cortex shuts down, and that's another adaptive response because during if there is something that's dangerous there, our brain doesn't want us taking too long to think or plan or all the things that the thinking brain does, so it shuts it down. What mindfulness does, it actually strengthens our brain so that that um, that prefrontal cortex is more able to stay on when the amygdala is trying to shut it down. So it lets them work more as a team, which is what we want. We don't want the amygdala taking over, which is what happens during anxiety. And again, that's all we have to remember. That's all happening for a reason. It's all adaptive, but just at a time where it's not really working for us. Um, so, with all of the amazing things mindfulness does for anxiety, the big one is strengthening the capacity of that prefrontal cortex to be able to stay on during anxiety. Um, and that will take time, but there's so much research which has found that mindfulness is really is a really powerful way to strengthen the brain against anxiety because it's of its effect on the prefrontal cortex and the amygdala.
Mm, it's so it's so empowering to know and understand the brain.
Mm,
I remember talking to Pete, my husband, and when I guess he's been on a wild ride with me to start with. When the mental health kind of starts to go south, and there's a big learning curve for a partner as well. And when once he learned about that, it's like, oh, that makes so much sense. I think it's so empowering for people to understand that this is not just some random kind of response. There's a reason for this
mm,
response. We understand what happens, and importantly, we know what we can do to manage the response, and sort of build our capacity to manage better over time. And
yeah.
and one of the questions I'd love to ask you about is, in the idea of a panic attack. That's something I've experienced a couple of times. It's not a
Mm,
regular thing for me, and it hasn't been for a long time. And I think what what helped me at the time, and this is pre me turning down this professional pathway, was just knowing what my symptoms were and knowing that they were anxiety and being able to sort of
Yeah.
label that as anxiety rather than getting symptoms that don't make sense and then becoming panicky about, well, what does that mean?
Mm.
And that sort of cycle amplifying, is that sort of,
Yes, yes.
yeah.
And where Hey Warrior came from actually was, a conversation with my daughter when she was going from junior school to middle school, and she had big anxiety, as lots of kids do. And I'd worked with lots of kids and teens with anxiety, but when it's your own child, it's really difficult to know what to do because they can tell it's coming and they're like, can you just not? Can you not? I know exactly what you're going to say, and can you not? And so,
I relate.
so it's a
Hmm.
little bit stuck, um you know, and at exam time it all pops up again, and one of the where Hey Warrior came from was, a conversation I had with her, and I said, "So tell me what it feels like then." And it was on. We were on the way to soccer, and she said, "I've got this feeling again." And I said, "Tell me what it feels like. Do you feel this, 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 this?" And I went through the symptoms and made sense of every one of them, which is where the Hey Warrior book came from. And from that, it just takes the mystery away, and it takes that fear of breakage, because the anxiety can drive anxiety in itself. It's anxiety about the anxiety. Why is my heart racing? Why do I feel like I'm going to vomit? Why am I sweating? Why is my face going red? Why do I feel dizzy and confused? And there's a really good reason for all of it. It's your body doing exactly what it needs to do. And little kids can understand it when we explain it to them. But then with that reframe of, this is actually your body doing something, really quite extraordinary, and trying to look after you, that's when we can start to, recognize that it's trying to serve us, not own us and not hurt us, and we can move with. So I would say, recognizing the symptoms and the purpose of those symptoms, and they all have a purpose, is really foundational for dealing with anxiety. I know for myself, I've been talking for years and years and years. So, I don't practice one to one anymore. Now, what I do is, I speak. So I do lots of speaking, and I get huge anxiety before I speak, massive anxiety. And I find my big anxiety symptom is I can't catch my breath. So I get quite puffed and I get quite breathless,
Mm.
which is really difficult when you have one job and it's to talk. And you can't do it because you're
Yes.
puffed. But what I know is that's because this is something really important and meaningful. I want to do a good job of it. It matters to me. And I also know that after 5 minutes, it will ease. So rather than that breathiness, driving bigger anxiety, what if I can't catch my breath, what if I'm not able to talk, what if I stay puffed, what if that happens? um, I can stop and go, well, no, I know exactly what's going to happen. I know why it's happening, and I know that if I can, just move through that, and remind myself that I'm safe and okay, then it will just go and it will stay gone for the rest of the day. I don't
Mm.
need it anymore. So that recognition of what it's doing is a really is a really important part of it, I would say, for kids and adults.
Oh,
Mm.
that's it. And I think it's probably so comforting for people listening to know, because I think, there can often be a misconception that just because you know a lot about it and means you don't get
Mm.
it, but that's the thing about it. We can't stop it from happening, and we don't want to, and we wouldn't want to get, like you say, we wouldn't want to get rid of it even if we could, because it's
Exactly.
life-saving and protective. And, I'm sure it's comforting for listeners to know that even someone like yourself, who is so experienced and, so expert in this area, still experiences it, and that you
Mm.
put into practice what it is that you are sharing with your audiences and through your written work. And
Mm,
it's nobody's immune, and the more we can understand it, the more we can manage and reduce that stigma around it, because it's so common. It's a human emotion. It's
yeah,
every single person walking the planet has experienced it, because it's a protective response, it's
it is.
life-saving response. And so,
Yeah,
but it's when it gets stuck, isn't it? It's when it gets out of
yes,
hand.
yes.
And you were speaking to the origins of the book and the different symptoms, and it'd be really brilliant if you could share today, what you said to your daughter when you had that conversation, because, you've you've articulated it so beautifully in Hey Warrior.
Mm,
And so, what sort of insights might you be able to share
mm.
today?
So it's really just about the role of the amygdala, and that there is a part of our brain. So it's really making sense of where it comes from, and what it does. And then I went through all the symptoms. She described it as, I said to her, "Is it that feeling you get?" Is it that feeling you get when you're almost asleep and you jolt awake? And she said, yes, it's like when I miss a stare. It's like when you miss a stare. Um,
Mm.
so we knew then, so if you can bring in that sense of, because I know what it feels like for me. So when you're talking, if you can bring in that sense of, this is what it's like for me, and there's that similarity there. There's that connectedness. This is what it feels like for me too. Then we know we're on the same page. We know we're talking about the same thing. Um, and then I just went through, and I won't go through all the symptoms, but I just went through the symptoms. And with kids and teens, they might not experience every symptom, but they're all there, and they're all the ones we know about: the racy heart, the sick tummy, um, the sweaty palms, or the clammy skin. They're all there for a really important reason. But what I did was I reframed it into, it's actually there to look after you. It's you are really safe. It feels like you're not, and you're safe, and this is why. This is how it works. But the big things then, I did was, spoke to her about how breathing works with the amygdala, as we've talked about, and started her with mindfulness, and she was already exercising. So exercise is really important for anxiety as well. Um, it's really important generally for mental health. But the big thing with the conversation was the reframe,
Mm.
of anxiety, and just recognizing, making sense of it. And even ourselves, it feels horrible. And if we have that horrible sense, if we feel like we're about to vomit and there's nothing to make sense of it, um, that's really scary. One of the ways I describe it is, if you were to run a race, run the race of your life, and you would get to the finish line, you would have all of the symptoms that come with anxiety, because you've been, um, running, you've been in flight, you've been running. So your body
Yes.
has done what it needs to do. The problem with anxiety is those symptoms happen when we haven't run, and that's what's really
Mm.
scary. But it's the same process, different reason. It's our body organizing itself, physiologically, for movement, for safety with anxiety, but safety through movement. So that's where the physiology comes into it, either through fight or flight. So um, it's making sense of it, and recognizing that it's there to serve us. And it does, and there will be a thousand ways that anxiety will have served you really well, in your life. It's because we get anxious, because I get anxious before I talk. I want to make sure that I'm prepared. I want to make sure, um, kids who get anxious before an exam, it matters. So they will have done, often, what they needed to do to get there. Not always, because it can also drive us into withdrawal and collapse, which is big anxiety. But it's the reason we go to the doctor when we've got a spot that looks a bit suspicious. That's anxiety doing its job. So it's actually there to serve us. So the big thing, with with my daughter and with myself is that reframe of anxiety. It's there to serve you. What's it trying to serve? How is it trying to serve you right now? Do you need it to work in that way, or do you just need to take it for it to take a back seat, and so you can move through this?
Yes.
Mm.
Yes, it is so powerful. And, I was reading the research around parents who were taking their children to the emergency department with symptoms of, well, what were ultimately found to be symptoms of
Yeah.
anxiety, but were not recognized. And so it's so important to understand it. And we know, for good reason, as you were saying earlier on, that there's so, uncertainty is such a driver of anxiety,
Mm.
and goodness, we've been in, prolonged uncertainty, different depending on where you are, there's been uncertainty of different kinds for different lengths, plus the overarching uh, unpredictability of the virus itself.
Yeah.
And we know that there's so much anxiety. And, one of the there was a few reasons why I wanted to start the podcast. And one was when and it's taken me a little while, and I must say, because that anxiety, it wants to put the brakes on because you're putting yourself out there. But here I am. But when everything sort of went south at the start with, you would know as a speaker, I remember the 13th of March 2020, I was at the Professional Speakers Australia conference in Adelaide, and I'd ummed and ahed about, should I get on that plane, because
Yeah.
COVID was present and problematic, and a lot of people were cancelling. And I thought, no, if there's ever a time to be at a conference with my colleagues, it's now, because this is a big deal. And my initial thinking was, well, if I can't work, I need to do something, because this is this is not really work for me. That's sort of like a real purpose. And so if I'm not out there speaking, how can I still be sharing, what I'm passionate about, what I really
Mm.
like to share and help people with. And so that was kind of the first seed. I wasn't sure how it was going to come about, and it didn't come to me in the idea of a podcast. A couple of people suggested that along the way. Um, but when it comes to living in 2021, the the need to really understand it and get that perspective on what's happening really equips people, doesn't it, to
Yeah.
be able to make good decisions about how they're going to look after themselves and
Mm.
support the people in their lives to be able to kind of move forward with sort of continued uncertainty and move forward, with a history of having been kind of really isolated for quite a length of time, depending on where
Yeah.
you live.
Yeah. And we have to remember, in relation to all of this, anxiety is actually the thing that's kept us safe.
Mm.
Now that it's all opening up, it's going to feel bad, but it's because of anxiety that we kept ourselves in lockdown, that we washed our hands, that we wore masks, because we didn't want anything to happen to us or the people we loved. It's the reason, and of course, it's because we were told to as well. But there was a level of, okay, I understand, this is what I need to do. It's the reason, and so anxiety comes with strength as well. It's the reason we're getting vaccinated. It's the reason some people aren't getting vaccinated, is because of that
Mhm.
anxiety and that decision made in strength. So it's the reason we're researching, which one is better for me. Am I going to be safe? And making a decision based in strength on that. So anxiety is the reason. The same thing that's kept us safe up to now, is the reason it's also going to let us connect and open up and do the things that we need to do. Anxiety is energy with nowhere to go. So anxiety around opening up, what we need to do is say, well, where can I put that energy? I can put it into understanding more about what I need to do to stay safe and to keep the people I love safe, whether that's through vaccination, whether that's through distancing, or whatever that looks like. Depending on your own circumstances, it will be different for all of us. But it's actually been the thing that's kept us safe. Now that things are opening up, we're going to focus on what's the same. That's what anxiety does. So we're focusing, and our kids are going to focus on, yeah, but the virus is still there. We still have to wear masks. We still have to do all this. How can I be safe? And what we need
Mm.
to do is focus on what's different. What's different is we know more about it. We know more about how to keep ourselves safe. We've taken a really long time to get here. We have done what we've needed to do to be able to approach this with strength and with the awareness and wisdom that we need, whatever that is. For different people, and we can get through this. The other point I want to make about anxiety is it's also a recognition that even if things go wrong, we can cope. So even if this doesn't look how I want it to look, even if going back to work, or even if I do get on a plane and travel and I get stuck somewhere, I'm doing that with full awareness. There is a risk. And I'll be okay. Whatever happens, it might
Mm.
feel terrible, um, and I'll be okay at the end
Yes.
of it all. So it's coming from that as well. But it's anxiety that makes sure we think things through and think about it as much as we can, as long as our thinking brain, of course, in the moment will be shut down. But it's what drives us to respond and put that energy somewhere. What we have to do is say, okay, that fear is real, and that worry is real. How can I respond with strength so that anxiety serves me by making sure I've understood as much as I need to understand, rather than controlling me by keeping me away from these important, meaningful things that matter.
Mm. Karen, your perspective is just so heartening. It is. It really is a heartening perspective, and just a beautiful and different way, and such a powerful way to look at it. And you got me thinking that maybe I should book a trip to Hamilton Island, because if I got stuck there, I would not. I would run that risk. I would be very happy with that. And
Right.
I'd make sure I popped over to near Brizzy to catch up with you
Yes.
while I was up
Yeah,
there
you
if I
would.
could.
Or I'd
Definitely.
pop up to
We
Hamilton to meet you and have a quick coffee and get on the plane and come home, just in case.
Yes, yes. We certainly had that planned, didn't we?
We
We had
did.
that all locked in, and
Yeah.
yes, and yes, we that's on hold for now. But
Yes.
I want to thank you so much for all that you've done to support a global community to better understand anxiety, and to really feel knowledgeable, and have stay informed in a way that from a trusted source with Hey Sigmund, your amazing website, and the way you write, it's just so beautiful and so comforting. I thank you for that, and I thank you for all the work you've done that's really inspired me, and it was really lovely of you to give so much of your time today to help inform people who are listening to this podcast, and really help them to feel more confident as they move forward, as the changes come over the coming weeks. So I'm very, very grateful to you.
It's a pleasure. I'm very grateful to you for having me and the work you're doing in this space as well. So, the respect and love is right back at you, I promise you. And it's just really lovely to be able to connect with like minds. And I think, the community that that we have around us in this space, there's open hearts and open minds, and I think I feel really lucky and very grateful to be
Mm.
in this space, and grateful to you for giving me a space to talk about it.
Oh gosh, thank you so much. Oh, that's just goodness, I really feel so moved by that. Thank you. And but before we go, I really would love for you to share with our listeners today, if they want to connect with you, or
Mm,
pick up. We talked about Hey Warrior today, but you have other books that you've written as well. And so, where can people find you and
yeah.
connect with you?
So I'm on Facebook, Karen Young, Hey Sigmund. And I'm on Instagram, Karen Young, Hey Sigmund. And my website is heysigmund.com. So that has lots of articles and videos, and all the books and resources are there. for parents to watch with kids, for parents to watch for themselves, or not parents, adults to watch for themselves, is all there. And I think the more we can talk about it, the more we're going to normalize it, and all have a common language around it. And that's how we build more safety around this, and open up the world for all of us.
Mm.
Yeah. Mm.
Oh, beautifully
Mm.
said. Thank you, Karen. Thank you so much. And I really look forward to seeing you in person at some time,
Oh, I
hopefully.
can't wait. I really can't wait. And I can't believe that it all got shut down just before we were due to. And look, this time last year, if anyone said we'd still be doing it this time next year, I would have said, oh, you've got to be joking. That's never going to happen. But here we are. But I'm so
Here
thankful
we are.
that the
It's so
idea is
true.
coming, and then it will. And I can't wait to meet you in person. Well, I have met you in person when I spoke, but like not a work thing.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. Well, I know I'm already got a booking for a Queensland Prezzo in
Oh, that's so
2022, which
good.
is just spinning me out already that
Yeah.
that's we're that close to the next
Yes, I know.
year. So
Mm,
fingers crossed all that goes ahead,
yeah,
and I'll arrange to catch up with you. And
yeah,
next time you're in Melbourne, if you could do the same, that'd be
beautiful,
amazing.
for sure.
Awesome. Okay. All right,
Okay,
lovely. Well, thank you again.
pleasure. See you. Bye.
Thank you so much for joining me for this week's episode. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe and leave a review. To keep the conversation going, I'd love you to join me over on Instagram. You'll find me at Dr Jodi Richardson. Also, if you'd like a copy of my free 5-day mini email course, Calm Your Anxious Brain, then jump over to my website, drjodirichardson.com, and you can sign up down the bottom. I've really enjoyed having your company. Thanks so much. See you next time.